It's one of the most remote places on Earth. A small triangle-shaped island in the Pacific Ocean where the closest landmass is almost 4,000 kilometers away. For over a millennium, it has been isolated from the rest of the world. But that would change on Easter Sunday, 1722, when a Dutch explorer on an expedition to Oceania encountered it by surprise. Today, Easter Island is home to fewer than 6,000 people, the majority of them descendants of the island's original inhabitants, the Rapa Nui. Most of us have seen their most famous creations, large monolithic statues depicting human faces. But many of us still don't know enough about this culture that has long fascinated anthropologists. This week, we focus exclusively on Easter Island and its people. Correspondent Stephen Gibbs visited the Pacific Paradise to better understand its past and explore its future.
Born from 3 volcanoes, this tiny speck of land in the middle of the Pacific has long been the symbol of near total isolation. The place where a unique society, alone in the world, developed, thrived, and nearly vanished. Until recently, it was a destination for just a handful of explorers who'd come to glimpse this mysterious relic of a recent Stone Age. But now Easter Island is within easy reach of scheduled airlines and tourists. It's just a 5-hour flight from Santiago in Chile, and there's at least 1 flight a day. Easter Island is in fact part of Chile, the only Latin American country to have a colony. The relatively easy connections and 0 tax rate here means that alongside the tourists, an increasing number of Chileans are also moving here permanently. And that raises a question: can this fragile environment and its original settlers survive the onslaught? Roberto is a man who has a foot in both Easter Island's past and its future. He is Rapa Nui, descended from the original settlers of this island. He makes his living these days running a thriving tourist restaurant in the one and only town, Hangaroa. He buys his produce from 2 distinct places: the local market, where he speaks the native language, also called Rapa Nui, and the modern Chilean-run supermarket, which sells imported products. As an example of one problem of being a Rapa Nui man in a modern world, Roberto takes us to see the ancestral land where he says at least 6 generations of his family once lived. The Chilean government is currently attempting to formalize land titles amongst all Rapa Nui people. Traditionally, a pile of stones was how land was demarcated. But a couple of years ago, Roberto thought he'd make things clearer by fencing off an area he thought was his. He was then told by the courts that another Rapa Nui man had already been awarded the land. That moment, he says, he decided he had to adapt.
It is very sad for a Rapa Nui person who wants to return to the home of his ancestors that they tell you that now, according to Chilean law, no, this land is not yours. It belongs to someone else. I think that other Rapa Nui are wrong because they now think like the people of the mainland. They think that if the government gives them land, all is good. But me, thinking as a real Rapa Nui, I think that's not good because it is not their land to hand out.
The remaining Rapa Nui are the survivors of an extraordinary episode in human history. For years, one of the island's many mysteries was where had the first settlers come from. One theory is they'd arrived from what is now Latin America. but a study of the language and bone structure of their living descendants has helped conclusively prove that the original settlers were Polynesian. They came here bringing with them everything necessary to make the island their home after an incredible journey by canoe of at least 2,000 miles across open sea. By all accounts, they found paradise, a wooded island with abundant tame seabirds and fish. The human population soon grew. Perhaps because life was relatively easy, the islanders were able to concentrate on what is their most visible legacy, the carving of stone statues in honor of dead ancestors. Cut from the soft rock and weighing tens of tons, they were carried across the island in another extraordinary, not fully understood feat. But the statues, called moai, were also perhaps the seeds of this society's near destruction. Building them became a local obsession. Wood was probably needed to help transport them. Eventually, every single tree on the island was cut down. Then the residents had nothing with which to build their canoes. They were trapped.
Archaeologists and others have always looked at the statue and never thought that there's a difference between the base and the shoulders.
Archaeologist Sergio Rapu sees what happened on this island as a cautionary tale for us all.
This is a closed system, like a planet. It's very isolated, and you have given number of species to survive on, certain technology, and limited space. Okay? So when you miscalculate how you managed it, then it's like being on a canoe and you mismanage the food supply on your canoe. You go hungry. So they were caught.
It's hard to imagine what the islanders must have thought when they saw a European ship anchor off this beach after at least 600 years of isolation. A Dutch expedition led by the explorer Jacob Roggeveen spotted this patch of land on Easter Sunday, 1722. He named it Easter Island. The society he discovered during just one day on shore was already in decline.
Now there are new leaders called the warriors. Little by little, they changed the entire community and turned everybody to the basic of surviving. Let's fight with each other on the resource to survive. As humans arrived here, they found paradise, they turned into hell.
During the following decades, every moai was pulled down. With a warrior culture dominant, the island's leaders retreated into cliff-top huts. By 1877, after raids by Peruvian slave traders, just 111 Easter Islanders remained. In 1888, the then king of the Rapa Nui, Atamu Tekena, signed a treaty giving Chile control of the island. Some say the papers were mistranslated and the king did not know what he was signing. The fact that after all the struggles the Rapa Nui people have been through, they are now controlled by a foreign power, is seen as unacceptable by this man. Leviante Araki is leader of the autonomous but largely powerless Rapa Nui parliament.
We want total independence from Chile. We want to be part of the world, but not part of Chile. We want to be known all over the world, but with Chile, no. We don't want anything more to do with Chile.
He believes that an independent island with just its indigenous population of around 5,000 permanent residents is feasible.
A Rapa Nui llega 90,000 turistas al año. Yo creo que con esa plata que del turista
90,000 tourists come to Easter Island every year. With this money, which the government right now just takes back to Chile, we could look after ourselves. And we will control the number of people moving here. Temporary visits we'd permit, but not permanent immigration. Chileans can go home and we'll stay here.
Chile se va a su país y nosotros nos quedamos aquí.
But Sergio Rapu, who as well as being an archaeologist is a former governor of the island, believes that there's no way the Rapa Nui can survive alone.
The fact that Easter Island is a Chilean territory and we, as a Rapa Nui, are Chilean citizens is a blessing. I'd rather be part of a huge country, of a big territory, than being alone in this ocean.